This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. Liz, their summer teacher workshop is officially full, but you can still join the action. Tune in on Friday, July 10th from 1 to 2 p.m. for their next community of practice.
I hope their last one went well. We did a lot of advertising for it.
I know, right? 100%. This is actually part 2 of CED, the one you just mentioned. This is a deep dive into AI in manufacturing. This is held in partnership with the NAAIC and AMTEC, AMTEC. Perfect spot for students, educators, and industry pros to talk shop about the intersection between AI, education, and all things advanced manufacturing. And Liz, I'm delighted to say that this episode is sponsored by Nectar. Welcome to the Classroom of the Future. You can check out, not a check-in, you can check out a great episode that we did with Kavita Guy, the CEO and founder of Nectar. This was episode 101, From Student to CEO, Building the Campus AI Ecosystem.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. So, Liz, it's not a secret that we love a little insider drama.
Love drama.
And we love a little dramatic reading.
Love a dramatic reading.
It's like what you tend to call chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
So the drama is certainly that there's a high-stakes court case going on between Elon Musk and Sam Altman, or Elon Musk and OpenAI. And so Futurism covered it, as did everybody under the sun. Under threat of perjury, a number of people are testifying. It's crazy.
Yes.
Lots of tea. But this is Mira Murati, who we have a deep affection for, former chief technology officer of OpenAI. She admitted some very interesting stuff about Mr. Sam Altman. Tell us, Liz, what did Mira have to say? And then we're going to do there were text messages that
Oh, yeah. That stuff does not disappear, my friends. So Mira Murati testified that Altman was not always honest or candid, specifically alleging that he falsely claimed legal clearance to bypass internal safety protocols for a new AI model. So her testimony also described Altman as undermining executives and pitting them against one another prior to his brief firing in November 2023. Remember that? It was like...
Yeah, they call it the blip.
The blip. Interesting.
Under oath, asked whether or not she believed that Mr. Altman was telling the truth as he made a statement to Murati. She came back with the answer, no.
Well, okay.
So here are a couple of the text messages. This over like a 12 or 13 hour period, there was all this drama where Murati was ensconced with the board and they were deciding, to fire him. And so some of these text messages got out where Altman's outside the room. He's not outside the room. He's not in the room. She's in the room. He's trying to figure out what's going on. So we have a few of these exchanges. Exchange one, we're going to call the temperature check. I'll be Sam, you be Mira. Okay. Are you fluent in Italian, by the way? I know you're multilingual.
I am not fluent in Italian.
Because Mira's Italian.
Well.
So Sam says, can you indicate, is this directionally good or bad? Satya, who just parenthetically, right, is the CEO of Microsoft, who has a big stake in this whole conversation, and others are anxious.
Directionally very bad. Sam, this is very bad.
Sam says, for me to be fired or for some new thing?
Mira says, yes, for you to be gone. They're convinced about their decision.
Okay. So then the board's trying to figure out who to replace him with. For a while, they were talking about replacing with Mira, and she said no to that. So Sam says, this is the rando replacement. Sam says, who are they appointing?
Mira says, new guy is rando Twitch guy.
Sam says, Emmett?
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be him.
Did you see that Emmett changed his profile on LinkedIn to be rando Twitch guy? Not on LinkedIn, on Instagram or something. He changed it to say rando Twitch guy.
That's awesome. All right, then there's the Microsoft play, right? So because Microsoft has a big case here, Sam's trying to kind of pull the Microsoft card. And he talks about something called an acqui-hire, which we've discussed a few times. This is when basically like a company gets bought, but they really are like taking the whole team at once. Yeah, so Sam says, what if MSFT, which is Microsoft, acquires OpenAI? Would that provide the governance the board wants?
Satya is being diplomatic.
So she's basically saying that's not. What does that mean?
I'm pulling Satya now. I'll keep you posted.
Oh, so he's trying to pull the Satya card, and she's like, no, I got it. Yeah. And then the staff rebellion, because this is actually what kind of turned the tide here for Mr. Altman, where it was not going directionally well.
Right.
So Sam suggested there could be a staff letter. This is before he knew that like all the staff would actually, try to quit. So he says a staff letter, and Mira says,
it won't matter. They don't care if everyone quits.
Do they want the IP to end up at Anthropic?
Just not your hand on AGI.
Which is artificial general intelligence. Yeah. Now, that's really interesting around the Anthropic piece, right? Because, clearly other things coming out in this case is just the acrimony and these folks this is a high stakes game and they do not all like each other.
No.
It's important to know that Sam turned out to be right here on the everyone quits because they did in fact replace Sam with said Rando.
Yes, Rando Twitch guy.
And then the entire company essentially threatened to quit and the board backed down and reappointed Mr. Altman. It's funny because if you think about Thanksgiving is a big deal at OpenAI. This is when ChatGPT was released right around Thanksgiving, right?
November 30th.
Then the blip happened in Thanksgiving. And so who knows what this Thanksgiving will bring.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Nice reading, Doc.
Thanks. I love a little acting.
There you go. So with that, I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Raddick.
And this is ChatEDU, the show about leading and learning in the age of AI. In today's episode, a good week for Jevons Paradox. We'll explore some economic theory from the 1860s and see why everyone is talking about it today. And I think also a little application to AI in education.
I hope so. Otherwise, that would be random for us to just talk about it.
Let's do an hour on Jevons Paradox, Liz.
Yeah, but let's start with the full show rundown. So we'll kick off this week with a debate about the fate of AI education applications integrated directly into frontier models like Gemini.
Next, we'll look at a couple higher ed stories where both the professors and the students are not having it. And by it, I mean AI.
From there, we'll look at a revealing new study about college essays, AI, and socioeconomic status.
Then we're going to return to the hallucination hotline, and we're going to unpack a study about academic publishing and share a fascinating story from a principal here in Connecticut that was shared during our micro-credential cohort meeting last week. And he's shared for us a really important Mother's Day. It was like right from the field, a Mother's Day update that we got from Mike Dunn, who is the principal at Granby High School. Big fan of the show, great guy. And so we'll see what he updated over the weekend.
And next, we'll share a cool update on some AI youth leadership grants.
And Liz, we could not go by without talking about screen time. So we're going to take 3 unique looks, one that I know you're going to completely dig.
I will.
About screen time.
And then we'll go beneath the surface as we unpack Jevons Paradox, including some pretty high-profile pivots on the AI job apocalypse predictions and a thought experiment on Jevons Paradox and education.
Whew. Can't wait.
And of course, we'll end with another great Bright Bite. All right, Matt, let's have a brisk debate.
Oh, cool. Like we're going to briskly go back and forth on some topic?
No, we're going to debate about Brisk.
Oh, Brisk. Yes, this brings me back to a text exchange that we had. So I pulled up the text exchange here. You texted me very enthusiastically and you said what?
I said, did you check out all the new things with the Brisk icon in Gemini?
Right. And I said what?
You said, I don't see it, but I'm assuming you need to have the Brisk extension installed.
Yeah, which would make sense. And then you went on to tell me that, yes, that's exactly correct. And then you said that it's in Claude, too. It's everywhere. Like, you were pretty excited. And I basically said, I went ahead and followed your lead because if you're excited, I'm excited. And I played with it for a hot minute. And then I said, I don't like it. And I uninstalled it.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so let's talk about it.
Okay, so in Gemini, like once you've had a conversation, you can now go down to Brisk and up pops, what do you need today? Top choices, presentation, quiz, podcast, tutor, and then you can create with Brisk or just get teaching ideas. So I did a presentation from, you'll remember last week, I created a new word of the day reminder.
Yes.
It's not working on my phone, but see this week if you can detect when I drop in my new word. I'm going to find a way.
All right.
And we'll see if you detect it.
Sweet.
So I had it make a presentation of my word of the day, and it made like 4 slides, and it was fine. What I liked is that it was actually a Google slide deck, so then I could go and edit it. It's like right there. It's right in there. It's easy to use, does all the things that people really like about Brisk.
All right, so you can make a slide deck. You can make a podcast. What were the other things that were got?
A quiz or tutor.
A quiz or a tutor, yeah. So do you want to guess why I'm not into it?
Because it's like a wrapper.
No, I mean, I'm not like on a holy war against wrappers. I think it's redundant, right? So in Gemini right now, relatively new feature, we covered it last week on the podcast. I can say, hey, please make a presentation about X, Y, or Z, and it's going to make it now in Google Slides. It's about the same quality looking as the ones that come out of Claude. I can go to Notebook LM and make a podcast. I can go to, Gemini and make a quiz, or I can make a quiz in Notebook LM. Like, I feel it's redundant, which is not the word of the day that I imagine. But I don't know. I just have this, and it may just be me. I know there's lots of Brisk fans out there, but there are so many tools that people want folks to use and explore. I think it's overwhelming for teachers. And so I tend to be like, just get really good at using Gemini and Notebook LM, and it's all you're really going to need.
I can see that. But, to make the podcast, you got to go somewhere else and you got to put your stuff in Notebook LM now. It's like this it does it right from there. If you're used to using Brisk, and I think if you're used to using Brisk and that is a teacher tool you go to all the time, this has made it easier. I think maybe if you're not a frequent Brisk user, you might not enjoy it or need it. But I think for teachers that are already really love Brisk, this might make things even easier for them.
Yeah, I mean, we covered that story last week, I think, where it said there were 3,000 applications that some districts have. And it's just, I think it is part of the overwhelm, and at some level, right, there's this huge pushback against ed tech and AI in general. And so, some of it's cost, some of it's culling, but that's right. You and I can agree to disagree. I like it.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about higher ed.
All right.
So, where people are universally not happy in the world of higher ed. So this is from KJZZ, which is one of my favorite NPR stations in the country. Do you know where KJZZ is out of?
K-Jazz. I have no idea.
Yeah,
is it out of New Orleans?
No, it is K-Jazz, and it's ASU, right? It's
okay.
The Phoenix area. And so the title here is Professors Blindsided by the New ASU AI Tool That Clips Their Lectures and Uses Them Out of Context, from KJZZ. I was just in Phoenix, and it was beautiful. So tell us about this.
All right. So Arizona State University has launched Atomic, an AI platform that repurposes faculty lectures into short, personalized learning modules for the public. The tool has drawn sharp criticism from professors who claim they were never notified about the project and that their intellectual work is being cannibalized into inaccurate, jumbled snippets that lack essential academic context. I would say that they think that their work is being turned into a taradiddle.
Okay, you got me. A taradiddle. I would not think a taradiddle would make sense here in context. So please do describe.
Well, a taradiddle is a petty lie or a piece of pretentious nonsense. So I would say they believe that their work is being turned into petty lies or pretentious nonsense, and that is not what it is. Their work has a high academic integrity.
What if it started as pretentious nonsense from a bunch of... Oh, no, sorry, I'm just kidding.
So now you've all learned the word taradiddle.
Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, so a number of things here, right? The service is $5 a month, and it's designed really for the community. Faculty members report being completely blindsided, as Liz said. They found out about this through social media. I mean, I think part of this is just a horrible communication strategy on the part of ASU, if this is true. The content, by the way, was scraped from Canvas.
Also recently in the news.
Yeah. Critics describe, they call this, they might have called it taradiddle, but they call it AI slop, noting the modules are frequently error-prone, jumbled, and academically weak. Really good, Liz. And, it makes sense. You have these long lectures. I mean, look, even this podcast is 100 and, it's 20 pages. It's going to be an hour long. So a lot of thought, I'd like to say, goes into the process. And if you clip a bunch of stuff that's not really, I don't know, people do love the clips on the social media and the podcast, but nonetheless, I could see that their concern is that it loses a lot of its context and its academic oomph. All right, so now leaving ASU and moving right around the corner to Cal State, we have discussed the large OpenAI Cal State project. This is a $17 million contract that provided access to ChatGPT across the California State University system. This is from Cal Matters. Cal State struck a deal. Some students and faculty refused to use it. What else is happening, Liz?
Yeah, there's been this significant pushback due to a lack of initial consultation with student and faculty groups. So there's all these inconsistent classroom policies and concerns over academic integrity. And the administration highlights increased AI engagement, but critics point to low training completion rates and the use of unreliable AI detectors that have caused friction between the students and professors.
Not good. Yeah, kind of quote from the article. I think that we're being treated like test rats right now because there's no policy, there's no guidance, says Katie Karam, Vice President of System-Wide Affairs for the Cal State Association. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So I would be curious to see if these contracts are going to get renewed on these really, really large. I mean, so much has changed. I remember announcing this. This was at the time the largest ChatGPT deal in private or public sector life as is. Now, slightly, these are two higher ed stories. A slightly higher ed adjacent story is a new study that came out. It was published on Inside Higher Ed. Low-income students more likely to submit AI-generated essays. Super interesting. So tell us about this.
This has been academically reviewed, peer-reviewed, so pretty high-quality study. It's quite a long study. But ultimately, what the study found is that they analyzed tens of thousands of admissions essays at a selective institution over 4 years, and findings reveal that lower income students are more likely to use AI in their applications, but they also face higher rejection rates and increased linguistic homogenization compared to their wealthier peers.
So the fact that they're using AI and AI kind of like distills down to the mean. Is that where the homogenization is coming from?
Yeah. And basically, students of lower income are being penalized more for using it than students with from wealthier backgrounds. There's a lot of nuance to this study.
Sure.
It is not as simple as it seems from the top. They don't know that so they weren't looking at each individual essay and saying this was AI generated, this wasn't. They were looking kind of more largely at the group of work and giving essays a score from 0 to 1, 0 being fully human to 1 being fully AI generated.
With detectors or like just human analysis or both?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
And they were looking at like word complexity, lexical diversity, and they found that the convergence of similarity was steepest among lower SES students and among rejected applicants. We saw that lower SES applicants adopted AI use at 28% higher rates than higher SES peers. But that may be because these students are using LLMs as a substitute for scarce writing support that they may not be able to use. So they're turning very reasonably to getting support from an LLM, where wealthier students are also getting support. They're just getting it from a human to make it not sound like an LLM. So they continue to have the advantage.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, those kids also have all sorts of other supports, right? I mean, that college counselor or coach or whatever that they're going through, is helping them in all sorts of things. And, kids from backgrounds of means have access to all sorts of other, opportunities, volunteer opportunities, civic opportunities, beyond the bot problem solving with AI opportunities that might, in fact, lead them to be more competitive in their acceptance rates.
Yeah, but even when they normed for that, there were
so this
still
is really just looking at the essay.
Yeah. So
I'd love to look at this pre-generative AI, right? Because
they did.
Oh.
So
thank God you read this video.
Yes. So there were substantially different rejection rates. The rejection gap increased more post AI. Yes. And so the SES admissions gap widened from 10.7 percentage points pre-GPT to 14 points. It almost doubled post-GPT release. And that held even after, like I said, controlling for GPA, test scores, demographics, and school type. But here they're thinking about what are the mechanisms? Why would that happen? And this is where it gets interesting, right? So lower SES students tend to make more straightforward prompting. They're not as good at prompting because they may not have learned it. So that means that their outputs are more detectable, right? If they're just saying—
and more generic in general. Right.
Correct. If they're just saying, write me a college essay versus a student who has been trained or taught or has had lots of practice with using an LLM are going to get more nuanced responses. This was also interesting. Admission readers may view polished writing as inconsistent with their SES profile.
A little bias.
So there's this heightened authenticity skepticism, right? If this is too good, the assumption is negative that they're using an LLM.
Mm-hmm.
Overall AI literacy, just knowing how to integrate LLM suggestions seamlessly, it's self-stratified by educational experience.
Super interesting. And also there could be account types, right? So if I've got a $20 a month Claude account and I've built a project where I've trained it on my writing and it gets my unique voice, that even just the difference between a Claude account that's paid for $20 and a free Perplexity off the shelf or a free ChatGPT will probably give you a different level of kind of like authenticity in the writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, all right. Great.
But there's some limitations, so let's not forget that this was one institution. It was a selective engineering school, so generalizability is limited. It's observational. There's no direct causation. There's some correlation. It's not 100% universal. It's not causal. But
it's a good
really
thing.
Signals.
Yeah, and a good thing for like parents and guidance counselors and educational leaders to understand that it's increasingly important for students to make sure that they don't rely, wherever they are in this kind of socioeconomic bands, that they don't rely on these systems, because we're seeing that's a pretty significant difference between pre and post ChatGPT. So really interesting. Okay, great. Thanks for unpacking that. So listen, Liz, something else that has not gone away besides the homogenization of writing are hallucinations. So this is from Stat. Fraudulent citations blamed on AI hallucinations are becoming more common in academic research papers. I don't think that's a shocker, right?
No.
A study published in The Lancet reveals that a significant rise in fabricated academic citations, which Columbia University researchers attribute to the use of generative AI tools. The total volume of these false references remains relatively low. The frequency has increased just sixfold between 2023 and 2025.
This is bad. The frequency of those hallucinations rose from 1 in 2,828 papers in 2023 to 1 in 458 papers in 2025. So the hallucinations are real and rising.
Yeah, and the idea that there's hallucinations, it's interesting that these hallucinations come up a lot in academic citation and research because, again, the systems are more often, well, they're hallucinating it under lots of different circumstances, but when they don't know the answer to something, they're guessing. Mm-hmm. And what we've noticed, because we've seen this in some of our colleagues' work, right, is that the study looks right, the URL looks right, but it's really just literally guessing the URL. So,
right. Or the title.
Or the title of the study, right? Because it doesn't know. And when it doesn't know, it tends to fabricate and make these things up. So, at some level, the content could be close, could be accurate, but the reliance on citations and, importantly, the ability of the entire academic community then to refer to those citations to better understand the topic is where this all falls down. Now, we had a fascinating hallucination experience during our cohort meeting for the spring micro-credentials. It's been a really nice group so far.
Awesome, yeah.
This hit close to home. Give us the setup. This is last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we have this great listener to the podcast and participant named Mike Dunn. And Mike was trying to do what?
Okay, so happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We totally missed saying that last week.
What a bunch of taradiddles we are.
No, that's not how it works. Okay, but Mike Dunn's the principal at Granby High School. So it was Teacher Appreciation Week, and they ordered food on Tuesday, which was both Cinco de Mayo and Taco Tuesday and Teacher Appreciation, all in one day.
Right, so it's like Teacher Taco Tuesday.
A trifecta of celebrations.
Yeah, and with Mike's blessing, we took a clip of him describing this from the podcast. Should we listen to it?
Let's listen to it.
All right, cool. Here we go.
We have a Teacher Appreciation lunch, and we have 3 lunch waves, and unfortunately, we ran out of food. So I sent my assistant over to get some more of the carnitas and the chicken. You know what I need to do? I just need to figure out which teachers have 3rd lunch wave and which ones are teaching 7th period so that we would deliver the food. And so I took those 2 spreadsheets, put them into to Gemini, and I said, go to column N. This is a list of teachers who have class on period 7. And look at the sheet here that gives the lunch waves, right? Thought that would be easy. Of course, it gave me a lovely list of teachers, Mr. Carter, Miss Smith, Mrs. McGillicuddy, none of whom work in my school.
I love that one of them was named Mrs. McGillicuddy.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Right. Now, we've seen versions of this when we've been talking with folks about training. We discussed this quite a bit. But it's interesting that it hasn't gotten better. So I wanted to do a little digging into this just to refresh my own understanding. So, not dissimilar from the study here referenced by Stat. Essentially, there's a couple different things that are going on, right? So between 24 and 26, the AI industry has seen this kind of divergence in accuracy. And it basically boils down to, if Mike was just trying to summarize the contents of that spreadsheet, it would have done great. But he was trying to reason across it, right?
Right. It was bringing two things together and reason.
Exactly. So the complexity of multi-step reasoning is actually where this kind of falls apart. There's a chart, and maybe, Andre, we can throw this into the video feed, but it's the historic shift in hallucination rates 24 to 26. So for grounded summarization, which has been like, hey, what's in this spreadsheet? Summarize it. Or what's in this article? Summarize it, right? We went from 1% to 3% hallucinations in 2024 down to 0.8% to 1.5% for hallucinations in 2026. So it's getting better, right?
Yes. Now
Now we've got multi-step reasoning, which is interesting. So in 2024, multi-step reasoning, which is what Mike was trying to do with Gemini in that spreadsheet, was like 20% to 35%. In 2026, Liz, that number is what?
It went up, so it is more likely to hallucinate. And now hallucinations are in 33 to 52% of the responses.
That's not helpful, right? Because we have...
If half the time it's hallucinating, between a third and half the time it's hallucinating when you're asking it to do multi-step reasoning, then we shouldn't be asking it to do multi-step reasoning.
And I actually saw some research that said it was even higher in some of the more contemporary models, right? Because they're trying to bring more horsepower to the multi-step reasoning process, but in doing that, they're making more hallucinations. Now, interestingly, the third bucket were scientific citations, which is what we just talked about in the study. Right. And according to the study, it's going down a little bit. So we've got some conflicting reports here, but the multi-step reasoning thing is super clear. So you and I both made a suggestion to Mike, or we made an observation, and he was like, we validated that was absolutely something we hear all the time, right? I'm doing AP test score analysis in Gemini, and it's making up the names of students, and it's making up the names of kids, and I'm trying to do this again, multi-step analysis. So what did we suggest to Mike?
We said, did you try Notebook LM?
And why? What's our reasoning there?
Because it stays grounded in those two artifacts, and it tends to be a better reasoner.
Exactly, because as you said, it's grounded. They use this thing called RAG, right? And I think they use a few different things. And look, it's not perfect either. We've had a couple observations in Notebook, but it's pretty darn good. So listen, at 11:04 on Sunday, Mike emailed you and I and said, "Good morning, Matt, and happy Mother's Day to Dr. Rade." Oh, thank you. Did you have a nice Mother's Day, by the way?
Did. It was lovely.
Yeah, I got to chat with your mom over Mother's Day.
I heard.
You got a Lego?
I did, but unfortunately, it was a Lego kit I had, so I'm waiting for a new one.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
There's a bigger one coming, I was told.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so did you want to know what we did for Mother's Day?
No.
Thanks for asking. I'm glad.
Sure. Tell me what you did for Mother's Day. You're not a mom.
Well, I'm a significant part of the Mother's Day event.
I'm sure you are. Okay, so what'd you do for Mother's Day, Matt?
Michelle really likes to keep moving all the time. So for Mother's Day, we went and got a half a yard of compost, a half a yard of topsoil, put it in the back of my very aging Ford F-150, and then we turned over beds and weeded and worked all day until I could barely walk or move. And that was her. That's what she liked to do for Mother's Day.
That sounds awful.
Yeah. So I think Mike may have had a less strenuous day, but anyhow, he says, "Good morning to Matt. Wishes you a happy Mother's Day. In a moment between festivities for my wife today, I was able to try my Teacher Taco Tuesday task using Notebook LM as per our suggestion." He said, "I'm happy to share that it indeed was up to the task! Exclamation point. Just thought that update might be of service to you and clearly now to the ChatEDU community. Thanks for the tip and hope you guys have a great day."
So this is interesting because, I'm glad it worked, but I think my own struggle with Notebook LM is I think of a notebook not as something that I'm going to use for one task, and that I think of building a notebook as so much more commitment.
Sure.
Or so much more like you use that notebook once and would never come back to it, right? Yeah. But it's going to do the task the right way. And I guess, can you delete notebooks?
Yeah, you can, thank goodness.
Right. So it did the task right, and it's obviously the tool for the job, but I think of a notebook as being such a bigger commitment. I'm going to make a notebook for this thing. Yay that it did it. Boo that you can't just do it in Gemini,
for sure.
Which they all are Google tools. So why do they know how to do it in Notebook? And why can't you just make it work in Gemini?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is all really, that's a great observation. I have, by the way, gotten into the habit of what I would call ephemeral notebooks, right? So I need an image. And so rather than go to Gemini, because I know the kind of image I want, it's got to be detailed, it's an infographic, or maybe I need 3 slides. And so I'll sometimes put a tiny little bit of text into Notebook, get the 3 slides I want, and then ditch the notebook.
Yeah, I'm not into that habit yet. And I think...
Well, it's annoying.
Probably,
yeah, you shouldn't have to be, right?
Well, this goes back to the Brisk thing, though, right? Like...
But Brisk would have hallucinated over that task, too. Because it's just sitting on top of Gemini, or it's sitting on top of ChatGPT, or it's sitting on top of Claude.
Right, but why can't you just make your slides right there in Gemini? Like, why are you going to Notebook LM?
Well, because the Notebook LM slides are better than the Brisk and Gemini slides.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, wait, hang on a second, Liz. Before we get to that thought, there's a knock at the door.
A knock at the door.
It's Jonathan Costa.
I don't know why Jonathan is here.
No one ever comes in the middle of the studio.
A few minutes ago, you told me he was coming to fire me. So I hope that's not why he's coming.
Dear listener, that's only partially true. It's a taradiddle. 1 second.
Wait, it's only partially true that he's not going to fire me? What are you talking
Just
about?
stop talking. I'm getting out of my seat.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, Jonathan.
I'm just here on behalf of the agency to congratulate you on your upcoming weekend at Penn.
Well, thank you.
It's remarkable that you are the recipient of the Ethel and Alan Buddy Caruth Sustained Leadership and Education Award at your alma mater.
It is.
And it is a proud moment for you, but for us as well. And I wanted to be sure to recognize what you do for us. And, we're proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very nice of you.
And it's just one of the great joys of being in the position I'm in is we get a chance to hire people who we just would like to be with and to work with. And you're at the top of the list, and we're just very grateful to have you on the podcast, in the department, in the agency, and to be able to see you every day. And it's just a wonderful thing. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
I'm excited for the weekend.
Do you have any idea what awaits you? I know you're on a panel and...
Yeah, I'm also on a panel. So that is kind of not every awardee is on the panel. The panel is specifically about AI. So there will be multiple Penn faculty on this panel. And I was asked to also join the panel about AI in education. Awesome. And then I will get my award. There's a couple of alumni awards that happen, and my parents are coming down to Philly, and my whole family is coming down, and we'll celebrate with some dinner and hopefully go to Eastern State Penitentiary on Sunday because love a prison tour.
Well, I hope you enjoy the entire experience, and just thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Phew, I'm not fired. That was awesome.
Wait, so you say you're going to Philly? Wait, I thought, isn't your alma mater in State College?
No, it's in Philadelphia.
My misunderstanding.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was really sweet. So the notebook thing is interesting, and you're absolutely right. And it would be great if this would just work in Gemini, right? But it's just important to recognize, as much as these folks are sort of the lab leaders are saying that this technology is remarkable, it's going to change the world. At the same time, whether it's data centers, and I read some stuff over the weekend on data centers, which is like, I don't know if you saw the build-in that Mr. Wonderful or whatever his name is from Shark Tank is building in Utah.
My sister-in-law was just talking about it. It's huge.
It's just nuts, right?
Right.
So between data centers, right now, AI falls somewhere between ICE and Congress in its public approval rating.
Not great.
Not great. And honestly, I think AI videos, misinformation, deep fakes, hallucinations, data centers, right? Mm-hmm. And so...
Bias.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to be honest about these things and recognize that the systems are not what they need to be. And sometimes that affects Taco Tuesday, and sometimes it affects kind of larger perception around AI. That said, one of the reasons that this podcast exists, and one of the reasons that you and I spend so much time in schools that we do, is to help folks kind of recognize where we can try to find accurate and effective uses of these tools.
Absolutely.
Liz, it's time to hear a little bit from our friends at Nectar. Actually, Nectar is a really interesting example, too, because they do quite a lot of work, right, in order to make sure that the stuff is grounded and generally hallucination-free, and they're doing fantastic stuff. So, from Nectar.
You've seen the headlines. Every AI vendor claims they'll transform education. But here's the real question. Can faculty actually control it? With Nectar AI, they can. AI assistants are grounded only in your institution's materials, embedded directly in your LMS, full instructor oversight always. No student data leaving your environment. No surprises for legal or IT. Already trusted by 116 campuses across California. If you're ready for AI infrastructure that faculty says yes to, book a demo at nectar.io. That's nectar.io.
And we are grateful to Nectar for their support of the ChatEDU podcast. Liz, I knew you would love this story. So this is Responsible Technology Youth Power Fund announces $1.9 million in grants to the third cohort of youth-led organizations.
Heck yeah, I do. All right, so the Responsible Technology Youth Power Fund, the RTYPF.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yes. Right tip. Has awarded $1.9 million to 24 youth-led and intergenerational organizations focused on digital safety, mental health, and responsible AI. So this third cohort marks a total of $7.5 million mobilized by the fund to empower young leaders as both grant recipients and decision makers in the philanthropic process. So they are doing both the decision-making and the receiving of the grant.
We've been at multiple conferences where there have been either student panels or youth organizations or youth leadership organizations around AI and education. This is just one of the best strategies that folks can invest in. Mm-hmm. Grant amounts in this project go from $50,000 to $100,000 per organization, which is really great based on their capacity, right?
Yeah. Grantees include Innovation for Everyone, which focuses on AI ethics literacy for students, and Claude, which works on accessible, responsible AI for people with disabilities. AI Consensus, Young People's Alliance are also awardees, which both of those target youth involvement in setting policies and standards for how AI impacts humanity. So this isn't necessarily just, this is not the same as some of the Beyond the Bot things that we've seen. This is just another way that youth are engaging with AI and thinking about it, thinking about the ethics behind it, thinking about literacy. So they may still be using it in lots of ways, but it's a different kind of, funding beyond the bot.
Beyond the bot being these like kind of kids using AI students using AI to solve real world problems. And this is more like, students actually having a hand in governance and literacy development. One of the best rated sessions from our 6th annual sold out AI conference a couple of weeks ago was from a group of students that came with some leaders from New Fairfield Public Schools. And the kids are doing all sorts of leadership work in that district. So, look, it'd be cool to get one of these grants for $50,000 or $100,000, but it's not, necessary to do that. Certainly, if you are a leader in a school district or at a university right now, there are so many good examples of creating AI squads, youth leadership teams, AI clubs, all sorts of ways that kids can take a leadership role in governance, in kind of really shaping the future of the organization with respect to AI. So seize the moment. And if you don't know where to start, just drop us a note, ChatEDU at edadvance.org. We'd be happy. And it's funny because the folks at New Fairfield very much were connected with some folks in South Windsor, and they just do a lot of idea sharing. So we'd be happy to connect you with people in our community that are doing that work both in K-12 and in higher education.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Now, Doc, we clearly, this has become a regular segment, and it's a regular segment in all of our feeds and all of our conversations, which is the great screen time debate of 2026. Yeah. And I suspect the great screen time debates of 2027 and maybe 8. We'll see. So 3 perspectives here that we thought were unique and we wanted to add into the mix. First, from the 74, some states are banning much more than phones in schools, and that's a huge mistake. So this is from Richard Collada. He argues against the surge of state legislation that moves beyond banning cell phones to restricting or prohibiting educational technology and digital instructional materials, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he thinks these bills, and he's correct, often fail to distinguish between distracting social media and essential learning tools, which could potentially hinder students with disabilities, undermine the development of digital literacy skills, which are required for 92% of modern jobs.
I don't even know what that 8% is, quite honestly, but nonetheless. So, and remind us, Liz, who is Mr. Collada?
Well, Richard Collada is the CEO of ISTE plus ASCD, and they work in nearly 100 countries around the world. He's particularly focused on ensuring students have an amazing learning experience every time they go to school. And the ISTE plus ASCD conference is coming up at the end of June in Orlando, and I will be there, and I am doing a lot of different things there, presenting, doing a book signing. I was just asked to do a book signing.
Oh, cool.
I'm talking about my book. I'm talking about AI. I'm talking about personal interest projects. So it's like one of the biggest educational conferences, and it's right at the end of June in Orlando.
Yeah. Do you know where I'm going to be? So you're going to be in Orlando at that time. I'm going to be in Waco, Texas.
Awesome.
So we're going to both be somewhere lovely and warm.
Yeah, it'll be warm.
Yeah, good stuff. So as Collada notes, there are a number of legislatures, and we've been chronicling here, who are, passing pieces of legislation to mandate print-based instruction and limit digital tools rather than really focusing on, social media or low-quality educational technology. And, he feels that this is a primary, he feels that they're failing to distinguish between things like TikTok and, YouTube, just kind of scrolling and kids coming home from school going, subscribe and learn more. They do a dance for their grandparents, right? But they rely on these arbitrary time limits rather than evaluating the quality of this stuff. And interestingly, he points out that the shift towards paper could replace high-quality adaptive technology apps with essentially static and not particularly engaging worksheets.
Yeah.
So
going to these worksheets, also really important, like 8 million children in the U.S. receive special education services, and many of them rely on assistive technology like screen readers, text-to-speech software to access learning. So that is a big concern of parents with kids with special needs. I mean, even a kid who's diabetic may have their phone app connected to their insulin pump. So like that kid now gets to have their phone out and, just figuring out all these different, like, what are the exceptions, what are not.
Not to mention all the data that we have that's actually really helpful. I mean, think about the conversations we had with Edia about some of the AI work they're doing, where they know a lot of really helpful and important things about kids because they use technology to kind of dipstick understanding, whether it's MTSS or mathematics or attendance.
Yeah.
So those digital signals, wind up being really important. Just hard to imagine a world where both, as you say, 92% of jobs rely on these kind of fluency and technical skills, but also these are modern institutions just like any other, and they use technology in meaningful ways. Hopefully, I mean, look, absolutely right. This is a great opportunity. It's the reason we're doing the screen shift. It's a great opportunity to look carefully at your technology use and determine what is of high quality and what's of low quality, and make some decisions.
There was a huge article that just came out about the first big study about yonder pouches and their impact on phones, and I'm going to cover that on Tuesday's check-in.
Ooh.
So listen to next Tuesday's check-in, because that article, you may be wondering why we're not covering it in this episode, because it is everywhere. So Tuesday's check-in, I'm going to talk about that article.
Nice tease, Doc.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're going to be a pro. Now, listen, another interesting nuance, because in general, one of the threads that has emerged here is that all gamification stuff is bad. All games are bad, right? If it's gamified, it's a dopamine hit, and, it's a low-quality technology use. And this is all just more nuanced. And so, interestingly, Arana Shapiro, who is both a parent and an educator and the managing director of a really cool organization called Games for Change, which is a very project-based applied uses of games, just posted a piece in Games for Change. The problem isn't screens. It's that we've turned learning into a game no one wants to play.
Yeah, it is. She argues that the current educational retreat, pulling back from digital learning games, misdiagnoses the issue. The failure lies not in game-based learning itself, but in the adoption of what she calls chocolate-covered broccoli, which is merely digitizing quizzes focused on compliance and right answers. So authentic game-based learning requires a shift from entertainment to deep engagement, where students must grapple with uncertainty, earn understanding through iteration, and build complex systems and thinking skills that standardized tests fail to measure. So good games don't ask, are you having fun? They just ask, what are you going to do next?
Right. It's a problem solving. It's application. It's kind of building an understanding of learning as they go.
This reminds me of Google's AI quests, which are gamified experiences with AI, but they're not just click, 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 and
It's not chocolate-covered broccoli.
It's not chocolate-covered broccoli. There's some really deep learning in there, decision-making, critical thinking, to ultimately get the right results to save the flood zone or to get the right people the medical treatment they need. Again, it's so nuanced. It is not, Math Blaster. It is more than that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, finally, on this kind of trifecta of screen time stories, here's one that I know. It is about the screen time ban, 100%, but I also 1,000% know that you will be behind. So this is from Spectrum News. Public schools see an increase in
Library checkouts.
Amid the phone bans.
I love this.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So librarians in the Dallas Independent School District report a significant surge in physical book checkouts following the implementation of a statewide cell phone ban. So data shows district-wide checkouts increased by 21%, with some specific campuses seeing jumps as high as 42% as students pivot from digital reading and phone use to traditional print formats.
Christina Estrada, who is quoted in the article, says, I saw students who would come in and they would not gravitate towards a book if they had their phone. And so that has now changed for sure.
Love it.
Yeah, students interviewed noted that they previously relied on their phones for reading webtoons or manga, have now transitioned to traditional books due to the ban. One student at the school recorded 206 checkouts during the school year.
Yeah. Well, students expressed a preference for the tactile experience of the physical book and, just that like mental transportation they provide compared to reading on a screen.
Mental transportation. I love it. Yeah. So, but ultimately, right, this is not to say, okay, well, everything then absolutely has to be analog and has to be a book. It's just a question of some balance. Let's get good value of the ways that we can use technology that add value and peel back and shift to analog where it makes some sense, which is in fact the purpose of the entire screen shift project that we're working on. So let's take a little quick break and hear about that. School districts across the country and the globe are working to balance growing community concerns about digital wellness with the very real need to build AI literacy and digital fluency. To help schools navigate that tension, EdAdvance and ChatEDU have launched The Screen Shift, a comprehensive educational technology review and insight system designed to help students prioritize quality in every digital minute. Through surveys, classroom walkthroughs, infrastructure analysis, curriculum review, and focus groups, The Screen Shift gives districts the inputs and strategic recommendations they need to drive more intentional and impactful uses of technology. To learn more, shoot us an email at chatedadvance.org or visit skills21.org/AI/screenshift. Okay, Liz, now it's time to go beneath the surface, and we're going to talk about William Stanley Jevons.
All right.
Were you familiar with Jevons before today?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
That's a taradiddle.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, so Jevons is an English economist, and he wrote a book called The Coal Question in 1865. And this sort of thing emerged called Jevons Paradox, where there's an increase in efficiency in a resource, which might lead you to think like, okay, great, well, we're going to, because it's cheaper, we can kind of cut this in half. We don't have to spend as much money or deploy as many resources. And it turns out that usually, not all the time, but very often, that increased efficiency just leads to more, right? Which is, sometimes good and sometimes bad. So for instance, in cloud computing, right, we made cloud computing much easier. Data centers expanded, the kind of process of storing data became more accessible. And so we didn't just say, okay, great, we're going to store what we have, but just do it for much less. We're going to store way more stuff, and it's become this massive digital ecosystem that we now have access to. There's lots of examples. Uber at some level is an example. LED lighting is an example, right? LEDs became much more affordable. And what happens? We wind up basically lighting up all the dark corners of cities and homes that we couldn't normally cover because we could do it for much less. Now, ultimately, that leads to more demand on the power grid and more expansion of the resource. So that's looking at it from even Uber made, if you compare taxis to Uber, right? Uber made ride sharing much more accessible, and it led to a massive explosion of ride sharing. But ultimately, that's like more gas, less public transportation, less walking, right? So Jevons Paradox is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It mostly is coming up these days when it comes to labor and the whole job apocalypse thing.
If we're following Jevons Paradox when it comes to the labor market, the expectation would be AI's made things more efficient, so we need less people to work.
Sure. Or we'll cut our time in half. It's either like the 3-day work week, or for every 3 developers, I just need 1.
Okay. But if it's following his paradox that it's made it more efficient, but we need more workers or more time.
Potentially.
Or doing more work.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, we covered a really interesting, we said last week, we covered these 3 labor market stories that were like, everybody's getting fired. Oh, wait, the AI's screwing everything up. Oh, everybody's getting rehired, right?
Because they have 50% hallucinations when you try to do any multitask thing.
But ultimately, it's not quite that simple, right? Because at some level, developers are becoming more efficient. They are having more output, and it's not all low quality. And at some level, one view of that might be that you simply are going to need more developers in order to meet the needs of all the people, right? I don't know. I came across this like YouTube short of this, and maybe it just really resonated with me because I just love a good Australian accent. I picked this up in the Tech for Humans podcast when I was working out on an elliptical in some hotel somewhere.
We need more and more developers, and the number of lines of code increase at a rapid rate over the next 5 years. And someone's got to be writing that and securing that and pushing that to production and caring for that code and maintaining it and knowing what to prompt next and what to ask for next. And this is not the activity of just anyone. This is the activity of someone who knows what they're doing. This is the activity of someone who is a computer programmer, a software engineer. That is what's important.
Doesn't it just make more sense when you hear it in an Australian accent?
Sure. I mean, we're gunning for a trip to Australia, so.
Clearly. All right, so now listen, the episode title was Jevons Paradox is having a good week. And it comes up because Dario Amodei, who is the CEO of Anthropic, was basically warning, like he was the biggest, just shaking his hands at the sky saying there's a huge, massive job apocalypse coming and AI is going to wipe out all these jobs. But he's had a significant pivot. So unfortunately, this last week, Dario Amodei spent last year warning of an AI white-collar bloodbath. Now he's changing the narrative, right? CEO Dario Amodei is pivoting from his previous warnings of a job loss with a more optimistic framework. So he was sitting next to Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and he invoked Jevons Paradox to suggest that the AI efficiency could expand demand and productivity rather than simply eliminating roles. However, he cautioned the unprecedented speed of AI development could still cause lots of disruption. And it's true, we really don't know where this is going to shake out. The other piece that had quite a bit of traction this last week was from Ezra Klein from the New York Times. Klein made an argument that's similar to Dario Amodei, but he added a really interesting twist here that I think is so relevant for educators. So Liz, talk us through Klein's argument.
Yeah. He argues against this prevailing narrative of mass AI-driven unemployment and suggests that while specific tasks may be automated, human labor will likely shift towards a relational sector where human touch and experience are prioritized. That sounds like teaching, nursing. So he invoked economic principles like the Jevons Paradox and posits that AI may actually unleash latent demand for services and increase the necessity for human connection rather than replacing it entirely.
Yeah, so he makes this really interesting case. It's a long piece in the New York Times. It's well worth reading, but he makes a case that Jevons Paradox may be real and that lots of cognitive tasks, as soon as they get the whole multi-step reasoning thing down, right? I mean, think about Mike's task, right? So, if Mike's task was become more efficient, then he could save more time, on and on and on. What becomes important then are the things that the AI can't do, which are these deep human experiences and relationships. What's tricky about that is that we have a generation of kids coming up who are a little bit more disconnected, a little bit more on their phones. So at some level, like really building emotional intelligence and the ability to collaborate and problem solve become more important for sure.
I mean, I think he gives a concrete example, like the rise of Nespresso machines didn't kill the barista profession. Instead, like the automation of this commodity actually increased the demand for the associated human experience and
And it really is. Like, you're not a big coffee person, but my relationship with my baristas are some of the most important relationships I have.
Right.
Some of these people become my friends. We talk all the time. And, maybe I'm just deluding myself. I'm just like another couple bucks in their tip jar. But I think it is interesting that we all can make all sorts of stuff at home. But like having the human experience in these shops are really fun. By the way, great recommendation on YouTube Shorts is something called Brooklyn Coffee Shop. It is so funny.
Okay.
All right, Liz. Now, this is a podcast about AI and education. So
yep.
I was thinking a little bit about Jevons Paradox and what would it mean if this is all true? So and there are lots of implications, but what would it look like if Jevons Paradox was really true in education? What does it means in terms of content? What does it mean in terms of grading and feedback? What does it mean in terms of, even like credentials and higher education, all that kind of stuff? So let's look at those three lenses if we could, right? So first we have the potential content explosion in K-12 and higher education. So what does Jevons Paradox mean in that regard?
Okay, so in this content example, right, it used to take a long time to make a lesson or a reading assignment. And to personalize it took even more time. Teachers spent a lot of time, particularly differentiating learning, or you have a student who like you really need to engage them, so you need to make it about something that they're interested in. But if you can do that so quickly now with AI, and you can create, everybody in your class can get a differentiated reading example, that's great. But now the demand for it is going to increase, and parents are going to say, well, why can't you make this for every assignment? And so now you're constantly creating these new bespoke curriculum modules that you're actually working just as much or probably more than you were before. There's more content being created. And so, you aren't actually working less. It's not saving you time. And now it's just like the everyday is that everything is going to be personalized to the student with a lot of work, a lot of compute, a lot of effort.
Probably. Yeah, probably. There's also a scenario where we're in the earliest days, like the AI agent thing, where the AI is doing multiple steps and tasks for people in a corporate context. Is emerging, but there could be AI agents that teachers deploy to develop lots and lots of content. And so, ultimately, it just means that the proliferation of digital content and learning materials, assuming that we're going to use digital content and learning materials, becomes pretty significant. Maybe we'll do like hyper-personalized printing presses with AI agents and robots. I don't know. This is all,
and where's the oversight for all of that is the other problem.
For sure. But there's going to be more. I think that's the point of Jevons Paradox, is that there's going to be more, and hopefully that more is going to be useful. You also have more feedback, right? So in higher ed and K-12, one of the bottlenecks has been the feedback loop, grading and critiques. And we have lots of questions right now about grading, but let's just do a thought experiment where grading becomes of higher quality. Professors are still dialed into the understanding of the kid, but maybe AI is doing other parts of the assessment. So a teacher or professor can only provide detailed feedback in the current situation on a limited number of essays and artifacts. And so will AI, in fact, expand grading and provide instant feedback to students? And when kids get this kind of like instant and quote unquote cheap, will the demand for that feedback skyrocket? And so students no longer submit one final draft, they submit 10 critiqued AI iterations. Even we cover that great story from NYU where the professor was scaling the voice bot that would interview the students. And at some level, that was expanding his ability to have better classroom conversations and pieces with and conversations with kids. I saw this myself this week. It was fascinating. I was working with a group of teachers and professors and other folks out in Wyoming, which seems to be a destination for me quite a bit. And we were doing vibe coding stuff, right? So a speech therapist who had never really used Google's AI Studio or any other vibe coding tool built this thing called SH Sound Master. It was like for schwas and shs, and sometimes kids like not do the sh correctly. And so in a matter, she went back and forth with it. And the first, I was like kind of just like eavesdropping, watching these two speech therapists build this. And the first one said, I'm not going to need an assistant anymore, right? Because she was like, I can scale this thing. And then the other one said, wait, do they need us? And she's like, yeah, 100% they need us. But she basically said like, okay, great. With these tools that I'm able to build right now in front of me, I can take care of two kids at the same time. I can expand my capacity because I can expand feedback. And so I've just pulled this thing up on my screen. It's called the SH Sound Master Precision Speech Feedback. It's got like a visual guide, and I have the word ship in front of me, and I've got a little coach intervention here. I can click the microphone and I can say ship. All right, so it tells me that I did one practice trial. It tells me what the adjustment is. Apparently, I didn't do it as well as I wanted to. It says the SH sound in the ship was lateralized, creating a slushy sound because the air escaping over the sides of your tongue instead of through the middle. It's wild. And she tested this a bunch. It goes through airflow direction, and it talks about how this is like feedback to the kids. It's a tricky adjustment, but you're doing a great job identifying the sound. Keep on going on that central air path. So all of a sudden, she has expanded the volume of feedback that she can do and then support more kids. You have a look of like terror and delight in your face at the same time.
Cool. It's all good. It's great.
Then it gives me a wish. It moves on to the next thing. It tells me about the coach's advice. Yeah, all just really interesting. Okay, I'll stop geeking out on this little particular application. The third one, and we're we're going to see this. I think we're about to share an interview that you did with a educational testing service. I think we got another one coming up actually this week with Masterclass. We've talked about Sal Khan's pivot to the $10,000 AI credential. So the third might be the latent demand for degree inflation. So as AI makes it easier to pass courses and complete assignments, the cost of obtaining that credential drops. Now, I also just did a check-in on this on like these hyper-accelerated competency-based degrees. So what could happen here?
Well, the goal is to make education more accessible and reduce the time required to earn the degree. So as the barrier to entry for a standard degree falls, the labor market is going to demand higher specializations or more degrees to differentiate candidates. So if everyone can use AI to graduate faster, the value of the basic degree diminishes, which means that kids will have to consume more education, which we've already seen, right? Like,
For sure.
50 years ago, a high school diploma was a bar, and then it became the college diploma was the bar, and now many are the master's is the bar, right? So instead of actually finishing school earlier, if that becomes faster, students are just going to remain in the education system longer just to acquire a higher degree, right? So it's not actually going to reduce the time or the money spent in school.
Are you saying that the education industrial complex is the winner here?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I think Klein's piece really here, though, is the most important because this is all just like magic 8-ball and reading tea leaves. I think we'll see if Jevons Paradox, in fact, it does seem like there's some really interesting angles on this in the private sector right now. We'll see what the implications are for K-12 and higher education. But I think following Klein's logic, right, this idea is as the instructional part of education becomes, quote unquote, cheaper or a commodity, the relational part becomes the premium resource, right? We're seeing this move towards a model where the human teacher's role is not to provide information, which has been like the thing that we've held on to forever because it's now infinite and free, but to provide motivation, mentorship, social accountability, all the things that AI lacks. It's part of the reason that Sal Khan's retreat, I think, from, Conmigo happened too, because they just realized that the human relationship piece of learning is vital. So the paradox ensures that we won't spend less time in the classroom. We'll simply fill that time with more intensive human interactions. So the baristas, the teachers, the cops, the doctors, everybody just, exactly has more of that good stuff.
Love it.
Love it. What a fun episode, Liz. I think it's time for a bright bite.
It is. Do you want to tell me what a bright bite is?
I can't remember.
Oh, well, that's a taradiddle as well.
A bright bite is an example where AI is making meaningful contributions to science, society, culture, hopefully energy development, because if these data center stories are true, we need to figure out. Actually, I just heard a thing that Elon Musk's Colossus, which is running on natural gas turbines, and Anthropic's going to start using some of the compute for that, those turbines are hugely polluting. And part of what they're doing is trying to figure out how to bring that all online using renewable resources. That's the thing, is that this pressure for energy and water are really going to be problematic unless they are used in the spirit of a bright bite as a motivator to help us figure out whether it's fusion or renewables or wind or solar, whatever the case may be.
All right.
Now, this one, though, has to do with the stars.
It does. I love a little space story.
I know.
So the title of this one is Powerful AI Finds 100 Plus Hidden Planets in NASA Data, Including Rare and Extreme Worlds. So this is from the University of Warwick, where astronomers used a new AI pipeline called Raven, RAVEN, to identify and validate over 100 exoplanets from NASA TESS data, TESS data. The system processed observations of 2.2 million stars to find close-in planets, reducing measurement uncertainties regarding planet prevalence by up to 10 times compared to previous missions. So they found 118 new planets, over 2,000 high-quality planet candidates. Nearly 1,000 of them were entirely new. These are short-period planets that orbit their host stars in less than 16 days. AI used this data set featuring hundreds of thousands of simulated planets and astrophysical events to, be able to find these true planets and distinguish against these false positives. Yeah, super cool.
Super cool. Well said, Doc. All right. Fantastic. Well, that was a really good bright bite. I like how excited you get about NASA and planets.
I do love a little NASA story.
Liz, have a fantastic time in Philadelphia. Have a fantastic time with your mom. You guys are doing like almost a Mother's Day celebration. I believe you were off to the mountains of Vermont to do what?
Basket weave all week.
Okay. So hopefully we will, on Monday, you're going to come and give us pictures of all sorts of cool baskets that you made.
Sure.
All right, so you're going to basket weave, and you're going to go to Philadelphia. You're going to get celebrated, which is worthy and well-deserved, which is super exciting.
Thank you.
And we will just get to see you next week. So I believe before you head off to the Green Mountain State, it is
time to roll the credits.
Wow, that had like a Green Mountain long R in there, too. That was fantastic.